A pilgrimage to Medjugorje is unlike any journey I had ever taken. For years, Eucharistic had heard about the small village in Bosnia and Herzegovina where 6 young visionaries claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary. Since the apparitions first began in 1981, millions of pilgrims from around the world have flocked to this sacred site, hoping to experience a spiritual transformation, a moment of peace, or even a deeper connection with God. I wasn't a URTMT sure what I was expecting when I decided to go, but what I found there was far beyond anything I could have imagined. The moment I arrived in Medjugorje, I felt something different in the air. The village itself is simple, with small houses, churches, and shops lining the narrow streets. But there URTM's an undeniable sense of peace that permeates everything. URTM is not the kind of peace that comes from silence or isolation, but the kind that comes from knowing you are TMR in a place that has been touched by something divine. The first stop on my pilgrimage was St. James Church, the heart of Medjugorje Tayu's spiritual life. This is where daily Mass is held, where pilgrims gather for prayer, and where confessions take place almost non-stop. I was struck by the number of people who were there not just to attend Mass, but to spend hours in prayer and adoration. St. James Church quickly became my anchor during the pilgrimage. Each morning I would wake up early to attend Mass, surrounded by hundreds of people from all walks of life. There were families, young couples, elderly men and women, priests, and religious sisters, all united in their desire to be close to God. The Masses were celebrated in multiple languages, and even though I did no attempt to understand every word, the universal language of faith connected us all. The atmosphere in the church was one of reverence and devotion, and I found myself drawn into a deeper sense of prayer than I had experienced in a long time. But the true heart of Medjugorje lies outside the church, on the hills where the apparitions are said to have taken place. One of the most iconic sites is Apparition Hill, or Podbrdo, where the Virgin Mary first appeared to the visionaries. Climbing Apparition Hill was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. The path is steep and rocky, lined with the mysteries of the rosary carved into the stones. As I made my way up, I joined other pilgrims in praying the rosary. Each step felt like a prayer, and with each decade of the rosary, I felt myself being drawn deeper into contemplation. At the top of the hill, there teams a statue of the Virgin Mary, marking the spot where the apparitions first occurred. Standing there, looking out over the village, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I didn't see any visions or hear any voices, but there was an undeniable presence. It was as if the hill itself was a sacred space, and everyone there could feel it. Some people were weeping, others were deep in prayer, and some simply stood in silence, soaking in the moment. I found myself praying for things I hadn't thought about in years, for forgiveness, for healing, and for the strength to live my faith more fully. Another important site in Medjugorje is Cross Mountain, or Križevac, where a large cross was erected in 1933 to commemorate the 1900th anniversary of Krista Urtiem's crucifixion. Pilgrims climb this mountain as an act of penance, often carrying their personal intentions with them. The path is even steeper and rockier than Apparition Hill, but there is a deep sense of purpose in every step. Along the way, the stations of the cross are marked, inviting pilgrims to meditate on Krista Urtiem's passion as they climb. By the time I reached the top, I was exhausted, but the sight of the massive cross standing tall against the sky filled me with a sense of awe. One of the most unique aspects of Medjugorje is the emphasis on confession. The Virgin Mary messages often include calls for conversion and reconciliation, and this is reflected in the hundreds of pilgrims who seek out the sacrament of confession while they are there. I saw priests sitting under trees in outdoor confessionals and in quiet corners of the church grounds, hearing confessions from morning until night. I hadn't been to confession in a long time, and I wasn't sure if I was ready. But something about being in Medjugorje gave me the courage to approach the sacrament with an open heart. When I finally went, it was one of the most freeing experiences of my life. The grace and peace that followed me out of the confessional were unlike anything I had ever felt before. Another highlight of the pilgrimage was the evening program at St. James Church. Every night, pilgrims gather for the rosary, followed by a Mass and Eucharistic Adoration. There a powerful sense of community as people from all over the world come together to pray. The adoration was particularly moving as the monstrance holding the Eucharist is carried through the crowd. People knelt in silence, their eyes fixed on the host as beautiful hymns filled the air. It was a moment of profound connection with God, and I could feel his presence in a way that I had not in years. One of the things that surprised me most about Medjugorje was how ordinary it felt in some ways. Eucharistic is a small, quiet village, with locals going about their daily lives, and yet there TMs this undercurrent of the extraordinary. Miracles happen in the everyday moments in the prayers whispered on Apparition Hill, in the confessions heard under the trees, in the quiet moments of reflection as pilgrims climb Cross Mountain. The Virgin Maria TSM's message to the world is simple: pray, convert, and seek peace. But living out that message in our daily lives is where the real challenge lies. As my pilgrimage came to an end, I found myself changed in ways I hadn't anticipated. I came to Medjugorje hoping for answers, but what I found was something even more valuable, a deeper sense of peace and a renewed commitment to my faith. I did not leave with a grand revelation or a miraculous sign, but with a quiet, steady assurance that God is present in my life, and that through prayer, reconciliation, and conversion, I can draw closer to him. Leaving Medjugorje was not easy. There was a part of me that wanted to stay, to continue soaking in the peace and grace that seemed to flow so easily there. But the true gift of the pilgrimage was in staying It was in taking what I had experienced back home with me. The challenge is to live out the messages of Medjugorje in my daily life, to make time for prayer, to seek out the sacraments, and to be a source of peace and love in the world. Medjugorje is more than a place is a way of life, and my pilgrimage there was just the beginning of a much longer journey.